Hi, I'm Xene Abraham, president of Ageless Art. Today we're going to do a project based on circles. Let me show you. So these are things that anyone might have around their house, and that you can use these in any way that you like. We often pass these around in our group art sessions so that everyone can kind of share them. The concept here is that we're just going to put a bunch of circles in kind of an interesting manner on the paper. So there doesn't have to be any rhyme nor reason, and they can kind of overlap, or they don't have to. I like to think of things in odd groups, though. I think it works much better to have 3 of a grouping of things on your paper instead of an even number. And I've been told that this is because our faces are symmetrical and that our eye actually appreciates looking at things that are asymmetrical. So asymmetrical means not the same on both sides. So there's the 3 that I've started with, and I could probably put 5 on this paper, but that seems a little bit excessive. And I'm changing my color. I like to kind of keep with the same color themes. So I'm going to draw on the inside of this circle just because it's easier. And now the circle, as I'm drawing, doesn't come out exactly perfect, and I don't even care. So there's one, and I'll put one over here because I think it needs it. And we're going to just try to fill our paper up with some circles. And we don't want to do too many because that gets a little bit chaotic. And we'll put maybe one down here. This project will work with any different kinds of shapes. And the outline of these circles doesn't really matter too much. You do want it dark enough to be able to see. But you do want some of them to overlap and be inside others. And at some point you just need to say, I've got enough. But we've got the paper pretty full. And I'm liking the way that looks. It feels pretty balanced. You can kind of turn it, look at it again, decide if you need a few more circles. But what we're going to do is we're going to paint all of these different colors. So everywhere that there's a line where one circle overlaps the other one, that's where we're going to change and shift our colors a little bit. So not everyone knows how to use watercolors, and there's a couple different kinds. So these are the kinds that you need to add water to, hence the name watercolor. And they become paint as you add water. So you want to take a nice full brush and add as much water as you can to your paints and let it just sit in the water for a while so that it becomes fluid. And we want it always to be nice and wet, so we really can't hardly use too much. And I don't need every color on this palette here. These come in multiple different kinds of art kits. You can buy the kind that there's maybe 8 or 12 colors together, and those work as well. These don't tend to be the highest quality watercolors in the world, but they are certainly adequate for this kind of project. And so what we want to do is get these nice and wet and add as much water in there as possible. And I'll show you how we're going to use the other kind too. Probably won't use that white very much on this white paper. But we're going to let that sit a bit. So this is just a lid. I don't know what it went to, but I like to use things that I have around. And we're going to use it as a palette. So this needs literally just a drop. And these are, a lot of people haven't seen liquid watercolor before, but it's just concentrated paint. So what we're going to do is we're going to really thin this out with a bunch of water on our brush. And I'm staying within the same color palette as the colors that I used in the markers, but you don't necessarily have to. If you start adding greens with orange, you're going to get brown. But if you add it all over and you get brown and you don't mind, it'll be beautiful too. So you get to decide which colors you're going to use and which kind of watercolors you have. And I'll show you both ways of using a watercolor. But the trick with watercolor is to use plenty of water. So we're going to start out here like this. And I like to use a nice big brush. And the beautiful thing here is that I've used I've used watercolor markers. So when I start to color or paint inside these circles, the circles are going to loosen up a little bit. So people aren't really going to notice, or they're not going to know exactly how you drew that line, because it no longer, once you add a little water over it, it no longer looks like a marker line. It starts to look like paint, which is pretty cool. And this is watercolor paper, which is pretty essential. You're going to want to use a watercolor paper, but you can get it at any of your local craft stores. It really isn't too expensive anymore. It used to be one of the more high-end expensive papers to use. Now I've done this circle, and I love how the orange starts to bleed into the red. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do this one. So I'm leaving this so that I can color it a different color. But over here, I'm going to use this over here. I like to do 3 or 4 spots in the same color before I switch colors, just because it goes a little bit quicker. And generally I have a limited time in which I can instruct people how long for their art, and so I want to make sure that we can get the project done in the allotted time. So I'm feeling pretty good about this many spots. Maybe I'll do one more right here. And every time that I'm doing a color in a different circle with a different color, now this is a little bit more orange on this edge, but this one, because it's pink, is going to stay nice and pink, and it's going to be a little bit brighter than that color. So these colors aren't really even going to look like they're the same color, even though I've taken them out of the same little bottle. So I'm going to wash my brush just a little bit. Doesn't take a lot, and I don't have to worry about getting the water off my brush, because I want to use plenty of water for this project. I want everything to feel nice and light and airy. You might have a different opinion, but I like to have it feel nice and loose. And you can see that that red just kind of blends into my yellow a little bit. I think that's cool. I think that's what we're after today. So that's what I'm going to leave it like. And as I go around, this was yellow, but you can see that the pink in the circle has made it turn pink. But still, I'm getting that definition of line there. These kind of look like planets a little bit, don't they? So I'm just going to keep filling in my circles. And this is another really relaxing, meditative kind of thing. I just go around and paint them all and see how they're going to come out. So I've got plenty of this color on now. And I'm not at all concerned if my brush goes just a little bit over the circle. It's totally fine. Now I'm going to come into these colors, which I haven't used yet. And we're going to see how these work. And like I said, these are not the highest quality watercolors, but I think they're going to give us some interesting color too. So, and we've got a little yellow there. And I'm going to put some over here. And like I said, I'm not too concerned with that marker bleeding into that. I like that. I think it's really cool. It makes those cool lines. I'm not going to mess with that and go back over it and try to smooth it. I want to keep those in there. I think that's cool. And so I'm going to add just a little bit more here and try to get over here into this one and paint this all yellow. So we get these to blend and add a little bit of color in there. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add some more colors. I'll try this pink out and see what happens. And we get that yellow and it's blending right in, and it's going to just kind of fall into the paper, and you can see when I hit that line what happens. That color is going to come out from the marker and it's going to change everything. And we're just interested in what's going to happen. This is kind of an experiment as we go. We're not quite sure, and we're not really concerned too much with the outcome. It's just for fun. So we're just gonna have a little experimentation with watercolor. And I'm really liking that. I really like how the water is soaking into that paper. But I'm going to go a little bit crazy here, and I'm going to go after this blue and see what happens when we add a little blue into our mix. So I washed my brush, and the blue, and like I said, the blue and the orange can sometimes do this ugly brown thing. And you can see what happens when I bring that brush across that edge. It's kind of fun the way the marker just picks up and shifts into the paint. So it does this, it's kind of a magical thing. And at some point you can stop. You can say, I like it. I like not having the whole circle covered. And I like this crazy, it's almost iridescent that's happened. And maybe you want to keep it that way. And I'm really, this is just water on my brush at this point, and I'm just spreading it around so it doesn't look like I gave up on it. But I also don't want to mess too much with the things that are kind of naturally happening with the edge, since that marker is blending with the paint. So I'm going to keep going until I get all of my circles painted. Just keep adding your colors. We're just going for simplicity. As easy as we can make it. Just make it accessible so that we aren't scared of trying something new. There's nothing to fear when we only have a few things and a little bit of piece of paper and some markers involved. A little bit of watercolor. Couldn't be more simple, but it sure is enjoyable. We just bring it around the edge and we watch that marker flow into the circle. The key to this project is the watercolor paper. So you do want to have watercolor paper. And as you can see, I just added a little bit of water to my brush. I didn't even add paint, just to spread what I already had on the paper into the paper a little bit further to get that nice color in there. And it looks like I just have this one spot left. I'll go in for this red. There we go. Now, I can say that I'm happy with this, or I can decide that I need a little bit of color on the outside. And you know what? I'm feeling like I want some purple on the outside, so I'm going to grab my purple here. So I'm just going to mix up. When I'm going to do the background color and I want it to blend and all be similar, I'm going to take this color like this and I'm going to mix it so that it's a little bit bigger blot of color. And now we're just going to go in here and give a little bit of background color. And as I go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more water as I paint. Because like I said, I want this all to be nice and light and airy looking. And we're just going to give this a little bit of color for the background. And as you go, if you want to add another color in here, if you're going to dip in, because I've got these other blues, I can dip in here like this and we can blend this color up a little bit. Just like that. There's no right or wrong. We're just gonna experiment and see what happens. Not every experimentation is successful, but it doesn't really matter. It's the flow and the fun of using paint that is really the joy to this project. Get some of the things out of the way here. It's a little bit tight in there, but this I have found that a lot of people really enjoy. Once they get to this point, they really enjoy just seeing what the brush can do with the paint and how do you push it around on the paper and how do you flow it around on the circles. And you can see I'm not even adding any paint hardly. I'm just going to spread this out and kind of even up the brush strokes around and see what happens as I go. So I can do it a little bit darker around this edge and then have it kind of flare out as I add water. And I like it when we start getting those fun streaks up in there. I kind of like the things we can't control, just to allow them and see what happens. I'm not going to fight it. So, as we finish this, there are some things that we can do that are kind of crazy and wild. So, we can take and flick a little paint at this. And so, parents, watch for, if you're doing this with your children, you're going to want to keep a close eye on it. But this is just one more level of things that we can do. So, we can kind of tap our brush and let little flecks of the paint go into our background. And we can just kind of see what's going to happen with that. I didn't finish this as much as I might have wanted at the beginning. So one of the things we can do is flick it with all the different colors that maybe we didn't use, but we still have wet. And you're going to want to maybe not go too crazy with your flicking, but that's kind of a fun thing too. So you just take your brush and you get it nice and wet. We'll use the red, I think, for some additional spots in our circle art. And I got the red and the purples going together, and we just don't really know what might happen, but it's fun to see how we can affect it in different ways. And you can just add water too and see what happens, because those are going to dry in different manners. All right, so I think what you want to do is look at your project and decide where is it just a little bit boring. So I've got a really nice little line of purple here, and I think I'm going to add just a little around this edge. And I'm going to keep adding some water here. And this is just kind of up to you. Do you like the way it turned out? Just keep adding things. And you don't have to worry so much about whether or not it's grand. We're not all going to be museum quality artists, but we do get the same benefits from just experimenting and trying new things. So I'm going to add just a little more flecking here into this purple. I want this to look kind of like I don't know, kind of planets with smog or something around them maybe. I can tap and loosen this edge up and let it flow into the paper a little bit. And there we go. We're getting those to kind of break up along that edge. That's kind of what I was after. So anyway, that was fun. One of the fun things that you can do with this kind of project is you can write a word on it. So if you are wanting to be more grateful or thankful, or you want to write love, you can fold this, you can make it into a card, you can do all kinds of things with these little projects. So there you go, Ageless Art. Thanks for joining us.